Well, while they're still alive, somebody else
Thrust my letters on to him.
He apparently went over the edge of the carrier and got out the lifer. And, you know, they were in their early 20s, I would say. And he had all these exciting experiences that you couldn't cope with in your late 60s.
He was a late replacement. He came in about the same time.
I'm trying to think of when did the associations, we missed the very first one, because we didn't find out it started, I think,
They were the first replacement we got.
I'm trying to think, they have every 2 years.
It must be 10 years ago. Because there's Charleston, Chicago, New Orleans,
San Diego.
San Diego.
New Orleans.
That's what I wanted to go to.
Yeah, we got all of that.
Well, and the Chicago one was just great.
The one in New Orleans, I would go with it, because I wanted to go so big. For some reason, I thought it was going to be in September, but it never was. We just left there, early part of May, left Florida, went up north, and then turned around.
I can't remember whether it was after that, when I went back to the bureau, or.
I don't know, what's your name? I was attached in August of '44. I went back to Florida in training command.
Yeah, that's. Well, I think I must have detached from the thing right when I got back. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, I must have left it then, and headed back to the, yeah.
Well, we reformed up Alameda up Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
Went on out again till we're out the end of the war.
Yeah.
Is that Conrad there?
Yeah.
Where do you live now?
That's his name. Yeah, more or less. You remember Hersch? What do you think of it? Yeah, the resemblance between
Well,
that's back that.
You took over?
45. No, this is,
That's Conrad.
yeah, this is John. This is his father.
Oh.
Here.
Still have it. Whatever it is up there.
somebody's got to say something because it is 6:15, and Holiday Inn is treating us to some champagne. It's due in here momentarily, and we thought we'd just hold off a minute or two until they come in with it. We didn't want to have interrupts, because once you get our student in a glass of champagne and Sandy starts talking, we don't want to interrupt. So just hang in here.
What happens if he gets interrupted?
I have to wear them. No message. No. But I want this copy of the day. I don't know. I bought this copy bring it back? Yeah, look at that.
They're wild.
There's no heel.
Yeah. No, that's me.
Is that you?
That's me. That's you.
Oh, yeah.
That's Joe and that's Al Michael.
Al Michael.
Al Michael.
Oh, United.
He was your wingman.
Yeah, of course.
Then you got the crash with that Colonel. That's Joe Robbins.
I don't remember that one.
See if you can figure out his name. I did. You know him well. He was a bullet got shot down. Yeah, the other day. No, that's what's the trim.
Oh, yeah. Just the pose.
Those are made in Conneola. We hold in Conneola.
I just talked to Dick a few minutes ago.
He's got a whole bunch of kids.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
He said, I'll go take
Oh, I was hoping Al would be here. I would have heard the rest of that song he used to play.
Well, he said that Al and his wife was ill, and Al himself was ill bad. He was eating 6 times a day.
That was made in Conneola. We had a little short time. The thing stayed Quonset Huskins and Gunner.
Yeah. Wasn't that bad? Wasn't that when we were doing a lot of military landing practice in Air Force guy joined in with us and the goalkeeper.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they kept banging around this and couldn't even get down the field the first time. I don't know how many times.
A few Air Force guys on exchange did that. They love
And then we'll get on down into other matters. One thing I would like to do before I turn it over to Skipper Harrison here is we have 2 honored guests here, Patsy Palmer and Marilyn Platt. These are Butch O'Hare's sisters.
Stand up so we can tell them who's who.
All right here.
Oh, well, great.
care to just make a few words of,
Well, you done so well, and you're forcing my hand.
quit while I'm ahead.
We're all behind you.
I met Butch in the summer of '42 at Virginia Beach. I don't know why he was in Norfolk. When he got there, probably had to do shooting down all the planes. And that's the only time I ever saw him. I didn't personally relieve him. I reported to Bucky Lee, who was the group commander before Butch. So I was looking through orders that I had at home, and there are copies of a letter that Butch wrote to higher authority saying that he'd been relieved by me, and we'd gone through the squadron papers and everything was in due order. And a letter from me to the same higher authority saying I concurred in what he said. And after the Independence got torpedoed and they sent us to Tarawa, I tried to call him one time on the radio, and I've forgotten what name I used in this thing, but I never got an answer. When I got on the Essex, I discovered that he'd been killed the night before, so that's as far as I go with Butch himself. So I'm somewhat of a short timer in the squadron. I reported to the squadron on the 16th, I think, of August, '43, and I was attached in about a year later when the squadron was all based at Santa Rosa. And from there I headed east to Jacksonville and got mixed up in the training command. That takes care of, I think, my doings as far as the squadron is concerned. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. I thought you did an awfully good job. You look so much more distinguished than I do.
Careful there now.
Even for the white hair.
Well,
White hair.
I might just add, if some of you don't know, how come we have the Mickey Mouse bit? Because there's a very...
Here, here. Nice timing.
That's Mickey Mouse champagne.
I realized it's pretty bad, but I didn't realize it. But, there's a Fighting Six insignia that's been in a traditional one that's been around for many, many years. It isn't this one, but that's why this is a special Fighting Six. Some of us, Dix, myself, Cy, some others joined Butch out on Maui when it was Fighting 3 and he was the skipper of the thing. And it had largely been reduced to a training squadron because every time they were too close, too handy, and the staff, every time they had a big raid, a fair going on, they'd grab a handful of pilots or take the airplanes away from them, and then some more pilots would come in, they'd give us some more airplanes, and they just wouldn't leave it alone. And so they finally decided you couldn't create a full working squadron that close to the scene. Turn in your airplanes and just keep a nucleus of pilots and go back to San Diego and reform, and we'll leave you alone. That was a phony promise. Then we got back to the West Coast, and they created Air Group 6, and Fighting 3 became Fighting 6, and Butch just decided the cap was ours, and we're going to keep it. So that's why this Fighting 6 has the cap for the insignia. One thing we might do, can we go around the room and ask people to just tell us briefly their name, where they're living, and one or two things about themselves, just going around. Then we're going to get this champagne put out on the table, and we're going to get into this toast bit. We'll start with you, sir. I know who you are.
I'd like to introduce my wife, Bonnie, over in the corner. I'm one of those two that's with VS6, not only with Butch's outfit, but we stayed for 3 consecutive cruises. And we had to finish the war before they ever got in the squadron. There are a few more in that same boat. You can identify yourself later. I'm Hersch Club.
At the start of World War II,
I guess they
I
were.
guess it was.
But it wasn't this. This squadron was, at the start of the war, was VF3.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Jimmy Thatch.
Jimmy Thatch squadron.
Yeah,
And Butch took over from Jimmy Thatch,
right.
and then that's when I became Air Group 6 and Fighting 6.
Yeah, well, that was, there was a Fighting 6 in 1930s.
There was a Fighting 6 prior to that, there was another Fighting 6 later on, and there may be a Fighting 6 today for all I know, but the insignia is right.
But the fighting, well, let them go on and on.
It
But,
started the war and ended the war, that's what I was saying.
yeah, but I mean, it was two different squadrons. Two different squadrons.
Started the war but didn't cause it. Jock, let's move to you, please.
My name is Jock Odenbrett, and I'm happy to say that I'm here with all of these people here today. And I'm glad that I came to this reunion because I'm hearing things and places where I've been and what I've seen that I've forgotten all about. So I'm really enjoying it and look forward to the rest of the tour.
I couldn't tell, first of all, I'm a little hard of hearing, and Jock's facing the other way. I don't know what all he said, but I want to admit for him, Jock was a distinguished judge, retired, and he was a commanding officer of a Naval Reserve Squadron, retired Navy captain in the Naval Reserve. Very distinguished gentleman. Thank you, sir. Please.
I'm Bob Hobbs. I've been with Jack a long time. What he said then about then, anyways. I got out of the Navy in '45 and went back to school and got a job as a petroleum geologist in West Texas. Been in Midland, Texas for about 40 years now. This is my wife, Carol. She's been around about 40 years too. So.
I forgot to introduce my wife, Mary, who's sitting way over there alongside of Cy.
And I forgot to introduce Eileen. So would you stand up, Eileen, and take a photo?
We've got a good precedence here. We're dealing with the men, and so we'll let them in turn introduce their wives while they're talking. The ladies we just introduced, so we'll skip to you, sir.
Oh dear. All right, I'm Ken Decker, my wife Ada. I left the Navy in '45. I've managed to keep her employed ever since. I'm now retired.
Smart man to me. You, sir.
I'm Dick Olson. This is my wife, Nancy. And I was in the 3rd tour duty with flying with Hersch. And I live in North Carolina in the foothills, which is almost as pretty as living in Missouri, I guess. We love it down there. I got out of the Navy in '46. I went down to Corpus Christi and was primary flight instructor down there for a while, and then I got out and I've been selling packaging materials basically ever since.
Thank you. Di, we'll jump back there to you.
Out of the Navy in '63, and now I'm retired about the 4th or 5th time. And, I'm about 5.5 miles as the bird flies southwest of the oil trough, Arkansas post office. This is my wife, Gloria. And she hasn't wrapped the chair around my neck to this trip.
Di is one of the individuals, along with Bud, we managed to serve together in other organizations in later years, Melbourne, Florida in particular. Sir, we'll start with you.
I'm in the middle here. I don't know who's going to get my back. I'm Bob Bloomfield. I got out of the Navy within 5 weeks of the time that the surrender terms were signed. I couldn't wait to get out with the shooting over. Had to pursue a business career, and I did. And I quit that when I was still pretty young. And I've been in Idaho ever since, which is really God's country. And I'm not going to forget to introduce my wife. I left her home taking care of our 16 horses.
Yeah, I'm Thad Coleman. I was fortunate enough to be in have another tour of duty out there, and I was in with a great skipper also, Pug Sutherland, who was with Dick Slash, and in area in Fighting 83. And to make a long story short, I stayed in the Navy 32 years, and I went through all the schools, including the War College. And then I had Air Group 11, and I got into jets, which was great. And then I had a big draft command, and ended up as, Wally Clark, too. I was his XO on the Roosevelt. And then I was fortunate enough to be CEO of Cecil Field Naval Air Station, one of the 4 Navy's master jet bases, and retired from there in 1973. And if I had it to do over again, I'd do it again.
And in the same time frame, amen, I'd do the same thing. In the same time frame.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm Hootup. This is my wife, Grace. She's displaced from one of these southern continents, Australia. I got out of the Navy in '46, went to work at Boeing, retired from there after about 27 years there, stayed in the Naval Reserve, finally got out to early 70s. So we're enjoying triple dipping.
I'm Dick Wertinger. I was aviation machinist mate on the Hancock. I wanted to fly like you guys. I wanted to be a pilot, but the Navy said, boy, you're going to make a mechanic. You're not going to make a pilot out of you. I guess I joined the wrong week or something. But anyway, I didn't get to fly until 1948, but I've been flying ever since. And I run a small airport down by Dayton, Ohio, the home of aviation. Right? Good for you. What?
The wrong service.
Huh?
The wrong service.
Wrong service. Air Force Museum quite a bit, and I know all those fellows. And believe me, they don't speak Navy over there. No way.
Willie, you're next.
Well, I'm Billy Callan. My wife Sue, 143 years. I stayed in the Navy, retired in '68. Was a college professor for 18 years. Retired from Auburn University in 1986.
That's 18 and 68, yeah.
And
That's good. Your maths are working there, Bob.
86. And we now live in Northwest Arkansas, almost where I began things. That's what we call God's country, on Beaver Lake, and enjoying it. This is the 31st home that we've lived in.
I'm Jack McCallum. I'm a Johnny-come-lately. I joined VF6 at Hilo in December of '44 and flew Corsairs when they formed the fighter bomber squadron. I got out of the Navy in '46. I married a Navy nurse. She's home babysitting grandkids. And by way of interesting trivia, I put in 40 years at Collins Radio Company in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which made most of the radio equipment that you guys used all these years.
Oh.
Some people think I've been on, we use the radio too much. Alex?
I'm Alex Rashu. My wife Kay, raise your hand. 44 years also. I beat you by 1 year, Will. Now I room with Jock Odenbrett. Bob Hobbs, and I've been hyper ever since. Everybody thinks my hair turned white because of age. I just hit the big 7-0 here not too many months ago. But it really happened at Tarawa. Some people call it Tarawa these days. And it happened because I flew in Butch's division, Patsy High. And the reason it turned gray was because Skipper Harrison took over afterwards, and on the way to Tarawa one day, he tested his guns. Well, it was pitch dark, and on our way to Tarawa, and he scared the living daylights out of all of us. And turned pure white right afterwards. The Grecian formula couldn't help it.
Both of us are like that.
Take time to introduce him.
Oh, come
Put him on
on.
the rock.
Well, I'm going to introduce him if somebody else don't. That's Moose Mara, by God, bless his heart.
No, I didn't. We're in the process of everybody identifying themselves and just telling us briefly who they are, where they're from. We come to you. Tell us who you are.
I'll be damned if I know. I've had a hell of a time. I came from California real fast, but it was a lot longer getting from O'Hare here.
Yeah.
Here.
Amen.
I'm Bob Merritt.
Now you're Moose Mare.
Okay.
Redlands, California.
You damn right.
What have you been doing?
Where are you fully retired in this day and age?
I'm real tired, but I'm not retired. No. I'm not retired.
Bob and I served different places for some time too. Old acquaintance.
I mean, having a gentleman with white hair is extraordinary.
I wish I had some.
Find yourself a chair. Here's one here. Wherever you can find one. Okay. Oh.
I'm a dissertation officer. I'm Bud Bass. I came from a ranch in Colorado, and after the intrepid caught a
Fish.
they sent me down to Melbourne, Florida, and I finished the war there as a fighter instructor. I went back to my ranch in Colorado. I've been there ever since, raised 5 boys. I sold my ranch in 1981. I'm retired, I play golf, and I shave.
I'm Jim Nichols. I'm from Minnesota. And when the war was over in 45, I just like Bloomfield. I said, those bastards were shooting at me, I'm going to get out of here. And I was in the reserve a little while, kind of under protest. Now, I really am not retired until today, and I decided today I'm retired.
I'm Dan Lamb, that's my wife Mary over here. I joined the squadron in December of '43, and after I stayed in until July of '47, and I got out of the service, went back to school, got my accounting degree, and I went to work for General Dynamics making submarines up in Groton, Connecticut, where we're from, and I retired from there after 30 years, and I do a little bit of consulting work for them now.
I'm Fred O'Hare, my wife Vivian. These stories sort of get me. I did 20 years in the Navy, retired. Then did another 20 years federal civil service, retired. We're double dippers, they call us. And we're Florida snowbirds. We live in Florida in the winter and come up to Connecticut in the summertime. Really enjoying it.
I'm Don Stedman. Very few of you remember me. I'm the one that tried to take on the F6 propeller Wasp. And I was given a medical discharge in '44, and since then I was a cost accountant for a major packaging company, Daniel's Packaging, you know. And I retired here 8 years. And this is my wife, Lucille. And we live in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And somebody said God's country, but we always thought we had God's country.
You got the Indians.
We only got one tribe.
Did we miss somebody down there? Here you missed Chief Decker.
Yeah.
Oh, you got
it.
Where's Dirty Joe Robbins?
There.
Oh, he's working to you, yeah.
There, Sandy. You're next.
You're next.
Well, I'm Dick Slash, most unfortunate name because everybody pronounces it that way, and it really is Dick Slash, not Dick Slash. That's my last name. We were married before the end of the war, and after the war was over, I got out, went to work for Boeing, was there for about 40 years, I'm retired, and very happy.
I'm Joe Robbins. When we got back from the truck, I went to Atlantic City in '85 with Willie Callan. And I got married there, married an Army nurse, and we were together 10 days and she went overseas. And then our orders came through, 4 of us. Who was the other 2, Willie? For regular Navy?
No, excuse me.
It was 4 of us, and we told the young, don't tell the CO. We're all going to do the same thing, all 4 of us. So each night we went to the club and had a few drinks, and we said, we always said do the same thing. It took us 2 weeks to make up our minds, either yes or no. So finally we all agreed yes. So we stayed in the Navy. So when 85 came back, I went there and instructed in Jacksonville and Miami a little bit. Then went out again on EF-11 on Chihuahua and made a trip to, we left San Diego 1st of October 48 and told us we'd be home for Christmas. Well, we ended up in Norfolk 1st of March. So I stayed in the Navy. And so now I'm retired and I live in Escondido, California.
In fact, missed anybody?
Oh, Joe talks better than you do, I can understand you.
We got a cameraman, this guy hides behind the camera.
Well, he had told us something about his.
And
He's
he told us about you, you're one of our guests.
No, nephew.
Nephew.
Okay. My name's Mark Maxwell, and as I said, I am the nephew by marriage of William Heels Davis. How it originally got started is that Aunt Eileen brought out his pilot's log, and there were some questions we had about his crash off the Princeton and a few other things. The only information I had to go on as far as trying to find out anything about it was that George Bullard was an Academy graduate. So I wrote to the Academy, and I got a copy of the letter over there, and it simply asked, I'm trying to find somebody that can help me with information about my wife's uncle during the war. Only one I know is an Ensign Bullard at that time. He graduated from the Academy. He was shot down on a truck on the 16th of February, and he survived the POW camps and was active in VF-6 reunion. Because Aunt Eileen said that in April of '66, George had contacted Uncle Bill about having a reunion. And it was just at that time that they were moving from just outside Philly to New Canaan, Connecticut. And then I never heard anything again. So I sent a letter off, and about 2 weeks later I got back a 15-year-old obituary. And, at that point I said, well, I can just about hang this up. But I looked in there and they said that the family home was in Radford, Virginia. So I let my fingers do the walking and called up the operator there, and they said, we have about 15 Bullards, who do you want? So I said, well, do you have any there on Clater Lake? They said, yes, we have a Mary Bullard. And I remember that was supposedly his wife's name. So I said, okay, give me that number. So I dialed the number and it came up busy. No, take it back. It came up, this line is temporarily disconnected. So I kept dialing it over a couple of months, and all of a sudden it started to ring, and then one night she picked up the phone. And I said, Mrs. Bullard, are you the wife of George C. Bullard, who was the executive officer of VF6? And she says, yes. I said, well, you don't know anything about me at all, but my wife's uncle flew with your husband along with Butch O'Hare back in the VF6. And then about an hour and a half later, we finally said goodnight. And my wife is over there beating on the door because I had to lock my bedroom to keep the kids out, you know. And
Why is that?
if you knew the two of them. Actually, at that time, it was just one of them. But it was just my oldest boy. But well, this was in 1981, and she told me that she would tell her son John that I was trying to find some information about the VF6. And at that time, he was just trying to get out of the Navy. He was a pilot, and get himself started with his family in California at a new job. I believe he's in electronics now. And about a year later, I got a letter from him. It says, "Gish, you'd never expect to find this letter show up here." And he goes through and he tells me about the Tailhook Association. And then I contacted the editor of the Tailhook, and he put me in touch with Hank Miller, who I'm sure a lot of you know. And I asked him if he knew anything about it. And he said, "No, you know more than I do." He says, "All I knew was I took off to Princeton in the dark, circled around waiting for planes, and I was one short. When I came back, nobody knew anything about it." So at that point, I felt I was kind of lost. And then within about 2 weeks later, Mrs. Bullard sent me a card and said, "I just was down to visit somebody you might be interested in talking to." And that was Cy Mendenhall. So she gave me his address and phone number, and then Cy said, "Well, I think Sandy's in Tallahassee, and I think Jock's someplace up near Milwaukee." So again, the old fingers walked, and I found Jock and I found Sandy. And then Sandy told me, "Well, I think you might be interested in talking to J.P. Altimus. He's someplace up in Long Island." So I walked again through the phone books of Long Island and found John P. Altimus. And then that sat around for, I guess, about 2 years. And then, not this March, but the past March, I went down to Florida, to Titusville, to see the fly-in they have down there. And I think I missed picking up on Hersch. Yeah, I got in touch with Hersch also. There was about 5 of you that I knew at that time. But what really started the ball rolling is when I went over to see Sandy at his place in Tallahassee after the fly-in down there. And he said, "You know, Thad Coleman was on a chairman of some sort of committee for a golf club. And he went out and he found it. I forget what it was. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, he showed me your name, and it was in Jacksonville area. Well, I got an uncle and aunt that we stayed with that was up in Jacksonville. He probably served under you. He was in the Navy, I don't know how long. He was in the Navy till, I guess, about 1960. He was a chief warrant officer, Loftus. He was in NASJAX, and he was on the Forrestal, and he was all over the place, and finally wound up at Cecil, and he still has base privileges over to PX and stuff. So anyway, got in touch with Thad. Thad told me that he knew of a few others. I forget if it was Willie and Bob Hobbs. And then I called them up, and then they gave me a few more, and within about 3 or 4 months, I had all of you guys together. And that's it. Then, of course, everybody was saying, "Well, you know so-and-so, and boy, I'd like to find out where he is." And then my fingers would walk some more. And then we started talking reunion between Willie and Hersch, and Cy started talking about the reunion in the beginning. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just start looking around, see what I can find." And then I had been in touch with John Lundstrom, who's author of the book called The First Team. And he got me in touch with Patsy here, gave me her address. No, he gave me Rita's address. it was, who was it now?
You want to ask me?
I don't know anymore. I've lost track. Oh, I know. Captain Rapune from down at Pensacola.
Rasmussen, his name is.
Rasmussen, right. Rasmussen. But there's an Al Rapune who got me in touch with him, who got me in touch with you, okay? Yeah, R-A-P-P-U-H-N, it's the southern one. He's on staff with Rasmussen. And then they forwarded that letter. So I've been, accused of building up my phone bill a little bit by my wife, but I said I'm just trying to balance out the calls you make to your mother. We got into a fight about that because my side seems to be a little bit heavier than hers lately. But anyway, basically, what I've really been doing is, first off, like I said, trying to find some things out about Uncle Bill. And then the other thing was to just continue on what George Bullard had started back in '66, and unfortunately did not live long enough to realize his dream of getting everybody together. I received a letter, which I have over there, from his wife, and she says she doesn't get around very much, but she wishes everybody well, and hopes everybody can, have a good life ahead in retirement. And I got a letter just a couple days ago from Dick Trimble. And Whiskey Dick has some family things he has to take care of. And he says, of course, that happens when you have 8 kids and 10 grandchildren. No. What the family thing is, he didn't say, but some people are tossing around another wedding, another, And I think we're still waiting for Al Fairbanks.
I don't think he's going to make it.
Don't think he's going to make it?
Oh.
Why?
Why?
Well, I talked to Trimble, and he said Al's wife is not well, and neither is Al.
Okay. And then Ash Roberts had planned to be here, and he contacted Hersch, and he's having a little bit of surgery done today, so he couldn't show up. But I know a lot of the people said they came. Oh, one other too is By Webster. He broke his hip about a year ago. He and his bicycle had a run-in with a dog, and the dog won. And he broke his hip, and I think he also mangled his knee up a little bit, so he can't get around too well. But he says, if you guys have another one next year, I'll be there.
Who's that?
By Webster. So everybody that I've talked to that couldn't make it are waiting for the next one. So everybody can get together and have another one. I know that well, I've eaten up enough of my tape. Let's get back to Sandy.
Most distinguished ace and one of the nation's most outstanding aces. I want to mention Dick's. He talked about 40 years with Boeing. Dick's had a very distinguished career, a major engineer, a major contributor. Did you have to do test flying too? But they have a son who did the test flying on the newest version of the 747.
Yeah.
Followed the chip off the rod. Then another thought came to mind. I want to be sure you realize that everybody here aren't just pilots. We've got the men, some of the men here, representative of the people that kept VF-6 going. There wouldn't have been a successful VF-6 without their efforts. We got the glory, and they did the hard work, believe me. And we're going to take a moment and put a bottle of champagne out on each table and glasses. And may I suggest that you participate sparingly so that we can go through a fairly generous number of toasts that we can.
Sandy, that's not the way we did it in VF-6.
No.
We had one bottle per person.
Right.
Propose a toast to our honored skipper, mentor, Butch O'Hare. If he's looking down on us this evening, I hope he approves. We're thinking of him.
Here, here.
Here.
Next on to all of our fallen comrades, those boys who gave their lives for their country. We're thinking of them this evening.
You bet we are.
Wish they were with us.
Here. Close.
And I'd like to suggest that people propose a toast from the floor. Deal Howard out, he's not all-knowing. Would any of you all care to propose a toast?
I propose to this gathering.
That's no good. Can't drink to that. We'll be drinking that all night.
And to those who wanted to come to it but couldn't make it.
We're gonna have to have another bottle.
I'd like to see us drink a special toast to one guy by the name of George Clow Bullard.
Right.
George Clow Bullard, I think, is responsible for every ounce of good that ever come out of Hersch Pahl. I think he's one of the greatest.
And as George would say, fellas, let's recapitulate.
I would like to propose a toast to the next reunion.
Here. Colorado.
Everybody another 45 years?
All right, that's closer.
45 years, no way.
Before all of this is over, not just tonight, but tomorrow, we'll make some decisions as to whether this is the one and only, or whether we should continue, or what we should do. But we'll get around to those things a little later on.
I would like to propose a toast to Mark Snackswell.
Right, Mark.
Thank you.
I wonder if this would be an appropriate time to say something to Mark.
Well, it might be.
Is there any more?
Let's just wait and see if there are any more toasts, and we're going to turn to another thing we have here from Mark.
I'd like to propose a toast to the happiest years of my life. Spent in the arms of another man's wife. Very much.
I'd like to propose a toast to the O'Hare sisters.
To Butch's babies.
Maybe we should propose a toast to all the ladies that have put up with us all.
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Well, there's only so much.
No. I can't stand it. They're gonna have to hurry.
How about 5 more bottles?
We got one ready reserve, folks. That's all we got.
Okay.
Al, there's a bottle over here.
This one's full.
So
is this one.
Okay, I'll pass them on you.
Pass them
Who's short?
Oh, yeah.
That makes up for the phone bills.
I feel real guilty about it.
Well,
Thank goodness there are people like that. Well, everybody else just sits.
Any more toast? Mark, you didn't get a champagne.
well, I don't even know what happened to my scotch and the rocks. I mean,
You got some catching up to do.
yeah.
I'm fine. Thank you, Hersch.
Please be seated. We want to move on to another item on the agenda, if we may. As you know, this gathering, this rendezvous, this group, whatever term you choose to call it, probably would never have come to pass if it hadn't been for Mark Maxwell. I've heard of squadrons, you know, where after some years, someone in the squadron gets kind of mellow and reflective, and he thinks it's a great idea to gather up the boy. But here's Mark, who isn't directly associated, you know, personally. It's sort of a tangential thing. And Uncle Bill that he was talking about, that's Heels or Wheels Davis for the rest of us. And I think it's a remarkable thing. No, I guess the spark plug that got this thing going and the momentum was in it. And here we are tonight. And so we wanted to recognize this, and we have a little honor that we'd like to present to him. Willie, would you make a presentation of this cake we have for Mark, please?
As Sandy said, we wouldn't be here tonight, I'm sure, that if it hadn't been for Mark and the work that he's done, the research that he's done. So I think it should be recognized that that Mark, being responsible for all of his efforts, phone calls, this sort of thing, and so there are a few of us that decided that perhaps in the good old Navy tradition, a plaque would be in order. So I'd like to read this to Mark Maxwell in appreciation of his tireless efforts in locating, contacting, and bringing us all together this 5th day, supposed to be tomorrow, of May 1989 at O'Hare Airport. Without your interest and enthusiasm, we would never have had this reunion. Well done from Butch O'Hare's boys of Fighting 6. And some of you may recognize the airplanes at the top of this thing, as well as the wings. Mark?
Alex designed that.
Some of you can stand up.
Like I said, I really never expected anything like this. It was purely just to get some information on Uncle Bill. And then everybody would say, you know, where's Junior Godson? Still looking. And where's Al Nyquist? Still looking. But maybe one of these days we'll find out where they are.
Sure. Does this sound?
Okay? And anybody comes up with anything, now here's one too.
I'm sure.
I talked to Dix for almost a year, and all of a sudden he remembered how to find Al Fairbanks.
Oh.
It was almost a year after I first talked to him.
Yeah, you can take another one. Go
Makes me
ahead.
think of Topsy. She said she wasn't born, she just growed. This was a seed, and it wasn't born, it just an idea, and it kept. Now, it has been suggested that it would be most appropriate that we make Mark an honorary member of our Felix the Cat VF6.
I second.
Somebody propose from the floor that we do such.
I
so
Okay,
we have a second. Okay, it's been moved to second. Any
But it's
discussion?
as if they don't want, maybe the person doesn't want to be.
Opposed? Don't you dare. Okay, he is officially a member, honorary member of Fighting Six, and we're going to ask Dix to make a presentation of a suitable medal indicating exactly this.
Mark, here
You
is
take
a
another one?
medal, and it says Mark
You take another one?
honorary member VF6.
Oh.
Is red, white, and blue. And then there's the lapel pin in red, white, and blue as well.
Pass it around, Mark. when you get through admiring.
I see it.
They got a trick ball.
They want it. Yeah, sure.
That's really some dumb gift, you know.
I know it's 17:30 or 7:30 right on the nose. That's when they're expecting us to diagram. But I guess we better cover the whole smear.
Yeah.
Okay. To go to Glenview tomorrow, it looks like we've got enough cars to transport those who want to go out there. One or two people, maybe 3 or 4, indicated a desire to not go to out to Glenview in order so that they could be ready and have their batteries all charged up, ready to go down to the O'Hare field in the afternoon. I don't say that, I'm not poking fun at anybody. Bonnie's one. Bonnie and I will probably stay behind in the morning for a good reason. We do what we can. We do the best we can with what we have, but in order to be psyched up and all ready to go for the O'Hare field up there, why we will not be going out to Glenview. My car is available, however, to get some people out. And if those that have cars indicated that they would take as many as they can, I believe we've got enough maybe for an extra seat for people going out there. And I've talked to people, I guess.
Where do we meet? Out in the lobby?
I think a common departure time is a good idea, and it probably ought to be somewhere around
8:30 here on the schedule.
8:30.
Stick to that.
Yeah. Okay, a common departure time.
It's
and
getting
your
early,
arrival time is on there.
I never
It's posted, I think, 9 o'clock.
It keeps
And you'll
getting.
be hosted by the gent is named on the schedule there, and Mark has been in touch with him. And there's interviews scheduled out there, and they have a pretty full day, which include a lunch at the Oak Club.
Very handsome.
I imagine it's Dutch Street or something like that. I imagine they'll cover these things.
Might we use the lobby for assembly point? Might we use the lobby
as an assembly point? Yeah, for their departure. For those that bring breakfast here, well, I recommend you have your breakfast and all ready to go at 8:30. And sometime during the evening, I hope that drivers will contact you, just like, for instance, let's see, Jock Odenbed already indicated to me that a couple of people are going to go with him, a couple of couples. And I'll just play like a fox in the bush, and I'll just wait for, see who's left to decide whether I'll go out there or not. Otherwise, I'll stay here with Don. Shoot.
I'll stand in the True with that subject, there's the subject of go.
Well, I'm not through with it.
We're not through that subject
Anybody can choose shut
In my God's country, we don't wear ties very often. How do you suppose the guys in the officers club at Glenview they wear ties? I've been in an officers club in 45 years.
Stand up.
No, in your case, I'll rent it. Not at lunch, not at noon, no.
I think this group can go out there as a group and dress comfortably and probably be accepted.
Thank you.
I'll
go.
Yeah.
Quiet down. You're right there. Quiet down.
Yo, one down.
What we're going to do is take a real brief windshield tour of the base, and we'll show you, going down the golf course road now. Those of you may have remembered when they had, I don't know, 36 or 48 or some ungodly number of golf balls here. We have an 18-hole regulation course now, and I put our greens up against anybody on the North Shore. We are a very unique facade part of the space. And when they come out here and they see something they don't like, they let us go. And by the same token, they very strongly support us. And that's one of the reasons we've been able to do some of the things we're doing. So, I'm going to shut up now for a few minutes, and when we get back down to the other end of the base, I'll talk a little more.
you station up here? Check that green out. That's pretty fast. I think we're probably first class.
You know what you see when you look up?
Self-help renovation on this base, where they buy the materials, and with the CB's technical assistance, then the sailors and or the people do a lot of the work themselves. We've completed a rehabilitation, or we haven't completed it yet in the BEQ, have we? The bathrooms. We're rehabilitating all the bathrooms in one of the BEQs. And the CBs are giving us the technical expertise, and the troops are doing the work. So we're saving probably $750,000 doing it that way.
I'm enjoying this.
Those of you might remember, we call this building 10 of the drill hall. This is when you saw the older buildings under construction, the two barracks buildings that are under construction in that slide presentation. The building in the background, the hangar type building, you're looking at it from the north end, but that's this building. And it's interesting, when we have winds forecast to be above 35 knots, we close the building. Because they're that careful about its construction and not having anybody in it, or if we have sustained winds that high, we go ahead and close the building. There used to be an Olympic-sized swimming pool in the east end of the building, in the east wing. One of the previous commanding officers decided it wasn't economical to fix it up, so he filled it in with concrete. So we're building an exercise center in there right now, a jogging track, and we've got a full set of Nautilus equipment, so we're putting in an exercise fitness center in there. Up here on the right is the Marine hangar, MACG 48, Marine Air Control Group 48. They are under the 4th Marine Air Wing. They fly C-130 tanker aircraft, KC-130s, and they also have Huey helicopters. And they have a variety of other smaller groups, a comm squadron and some other things attached. That's one of the newest buildings on the base. As we go around the corner up here, you'll see off to your right is the old hangar, Hangar 1. And off to your left, as we get down a little ways, you'll see the newest building on the base, which is the new training building. And then as we head west again up the far street, we're going to go by Barracks 55 and 56, which were the two that you saw under construction in the command presentation. And we're still using them every weekend. So as we go along, if there's any questions, just sound off. My voice is kind of coming and going today, so I'm going to try not to talk too much over the truck.
Anyway, after we got that submarine, I had a big fish with fire around. All the way out like this. She wasn't getting a fire Bangladesh. I had it to the cover, so we're sort of going now a single breast instead of double breast. And he just walked by. He came all the way to the airplanes. The Marine was coming over. I just kidding. He says, "You've got to do that." I couldn't move. These were like these. I weighed 130. This time I weighed 200. I don't know. I don't know about you.
Well, it was a real period of time, I think. We got reorganization, people got known.
All the time we were there, I don't think they occupied an acre. Hanging on the perimeter of the so quick,
They tried a couple of big pushes. That my commanding officer has been very aggressively pursuing a solution to is the fact that we live in one of the, if not the highest cost of living areas in the country. And when those of you who were in the military before, most of you did not come in married. Certainly did not come in married with children. The Navy's attitude was if they wanted you to have a wife, they'd give you one in your seat bag. Today, when I came in 14 years ago, there were a lot of what I would call mid-grade enlisted people who were coming in or coming on active duty who had families, E5s, E6s, E7s. Today we get E3s and E2s with families. And you can imagine what it's like for them to come here to this area to try to live. We have on this base a roughly 420 unit programmable deficit in housing, meaning that we should be providing housing for 420 more families than we're capable of right now. Senator Dixon, who has been a very good friend of the Navy here, helped us get additional money put into the budget and get the money moved up a year to begin construction of a new family housing project out here in this large open field, which used to be part of the off-duty runway, those of you who were here 20 years ago. To the north end, the 10 acres to the north, we're going to break ground this summer on construction of 100 new townhouse-type housing units, and or 150, excuse me, new units. And once we get those units constructed, the two-story buildings that you see over there behind the trailers are what we call Johnson Court. They're part of what some of you may remember as being unacquired wary housing, which was an experiment that the Navy participated in when they allowed civilians to come in and lease land for next to nothing and build substandard housing on it and put people in it. Those things were substandard within 5 years of their construction. And what we're going to do once we get the 150 new units constructed, we're going to demolish 100 of the old units and construct 150 new units on top on the site where the old ones were demolished. And then once the second set are constructed, we're going to demolish the rest of Johnson Court. And the plan calls for building additional housing units to ultimately come within 10 or 20 of the programmable deficit as it now exists for housing. In addition, the trailers that you see around the edge of that park are all going to be resituated into a landscaped, planned trailer park down here in the southern end of this large open field. The trailers are very popular because people can own them. What they do is they basically rent the space from the government. They pay for their own utilities. And it's a very easy way and relatively inexpensive for people to not have to go out here in town and pay $900 a month for a 900 square foot apartment. And it also gives them access to the Glenview schools, which are some of the best in the country. And what happens now is we have people, E3s, with their families living an hour or an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 30-minute commute from the air station in order to find affordable housing. So that's one of the problems that we're addressing here upon the air station. And the tour you're getting today is the same one that Senator Dixon got, that Congressman Porter has gotten, that the CNO got, that everybody who comes on this base, who's anybody, gets this tour. So.
You mean I'm somebody?
Yeah.
He wasn't in front of you.
Is this the first hangar that he was talking about? No. See where the power is? Oh, yeah. That farmhouse. Remember there was a cyclone fence and a highway that ran last night? Yeah, right by it. So it would have been down about this. They did all in here, right?
Keep up with fast
Ranger, when they topped off fuel, we had when I was on the
Nancy fixed
Amy Friedrich was supposed to be refueling submarines down in the Caribbean. We weren't in the war yet. We left off right no confidence, only to find out the scuttle was created before we left off. But when I was leading up to it, so they topped off, the Ranger was fuel to make a high-speed run, and then they topped off the fuel and about 4 or 5 degree lift. So they had flight operations for the first few days. So they burned up enough fuel and we
so much weight, my double-breasted suit became a single-breasted suit.
leaned to the eye and side.
And I stood there at attention.
Yeah, they learned a lot about carriers.
Oh, the admiral was very nice. He was glad very fast. I don't think I'd ever seen that.
Yeah, sure, so they had something. What are skippers of those things must have had problems, you know, that are unsurmountable. You know, I mean, you can say what you want. If it's over that, had to be some anxious moments in some of their stores. Of course, then you look at those little destroyers out there and they look like they're underwater. How the heck those guys withstand it, 2 or 3 days?
And you're retired.
Okay, what's going to happen here is, hold it up, I'm going to divide us into 2 groups. One of the groups is going to stay on the bus and go over to the tower and see the ATC setup. The other group's going to go in the aircraft. And then in about 40 minutes or so, we're going to flip-flop. And the other group will go over to the tower and the other group will go on the aircraft.
Alphabetically or by roll?
Yeah.
Yeah, how you gonna do that? By the way.
Starboard report. Age.
That puts me at the beginning of the end.
That could be, yeah. Good port and starboard.
That's a good question. The different paint jobs, the new paint job is going to be the spooky gray. As they go to rebuild, to rework, and come back, they come back with that paint job on them. It's supposedly gives off a low radar signature, and against any kind of a cloudy or black-gray background, they're real difficult to see visually.
Which is the spooky gray? The second one?
Yeah, the
darker one?
The sort of blue-gray one out there. It used to be, even 5 years ago, they had all kinds of bright colors on them, and they had Lima Sierra, and they had on the tail, and they had a cobra or a lion or whatever the squadron insignia was, and all that was. And then they decided that the Russians knew too much about who was on the job and that kind of thing. So they've done away, you can tell by looking at the tails, they've done away with all of the tail markings. And once they go to the gray, they do away virtually with all significant markings other than the fact that it's U.S. and it's Navy. So, I guess we're tricking them somehow.
tricking them. I don't know about you, but I always kind of figured that I wanted to know who I was anyway.
When we got
Yes, that's true. Both of these squadrons, 35% of the Navy's reserve, 35% of the Navy's P3 assets are in the Naval Reserve. And these two squadrons have both returned from a month each in Japan, where they relieved the regular Navy squadron over there and just stepped right in and assumed their responsibilities. We train as we would fight, and we fight as we train. And we don't have time for spool-up time anymore. So the training is very intensive. The new training building that we passed, the construction you saw going on this side of it, is for a new, fully digital, computerized tactics and weapons trainer. And P3 crews from all over the United States will come in here to get specific warfare type training in the simulator. Because of the expense involved with flying crews different places and trying to line up submarines for them to work with and that kind of thing, everybody's going to simulators. They've even out at, they're working with simulators now where two pilots can get two different simulators programmed with two different aircraft capabilities in dogfight. And the computer puts it all up on a screen in an almost 3D display. So it's the wonder of modern electronics, I guess.
Nintendo.
Nintendo.
No, we've done away with links. I think they had the last ones down in Pensacola when I was going through. I know they've got one in the Smithsonian now. I was there a couple of years ago. They got one in the Smithsonian.
They don't understand
Well, let me have half of you. If you've got hats, please hang on to your hats. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this back. Please take a set of earplugs out of it. Those of you that go into the aircraft, I want you to have, let's take all the people on the right-hand side, get off and come with me to the aircraft. The rest of you are going to the tower. My right, my right.
You're right.
That's going to be a Joe.
It's just in the original hangar, then right here is there. It didn't have the round thing on there at all. Well, this is where I got my first security watch. And then there was a hybrid right over there that we
They're going to the air.
They need to have it in their pocket. When they come back to go on the airplane, they need to have it.
We can leave things on the bus?
Yes. Oh no, it just goes there right there. What you hear running out there is an auxiliary power unit. I don't think you all ever had anything like that. It's just a little small turbine engine they use to generate electricity to run all the systems for testing and for sitting idle, so you don't have to turn the engines.
No more cartridges.
Nope. We don't have the old, what was it, 2 banks of 6? The old shotgun primer starters?
Yep. Fire one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going on now.
Everybody got your plugs?
Yeah.
Coming forward.
Turn off my hearing aid now.
Yeah. I only need one to save my right ear. My left ear's shut.
This person will pick it up and they'll take, okay, this is 5 miles here, this bright one. And down here they use this little button to move the one back and forth and this one here up and down. Now this in here is elevation, that's how high he's above the ground coming in. this here's an extended center line of our runway. It just runs out. That's to put him on course with the runway. And you just move this back and forth and up and down to keep on your target. You'll have two targets. You have one up here and one down.
And she's got an ATIS machine over to her left on the top. We put all the weather on there, and if the pilot needs any recording information, we'll follow that frequency and we'll get the weather off there. Face-offs types in all the information we need for aircraft where we're going, takes all the flight plans. And it comes up on our computer over here to the left. And we get that strip out.
Just got another shop line right there.
New ones.
North pad top.
See, it'll come up over here. We just pull it out. What our strips look like. This is our call time, what type it is, where he's going, how they want us to vector him. What his squad gives the time he throws it out, what altitude he is. So when we get these, he calls it up for his clients, we'll just read them off to him. Write it down, we'll write it down, we'll tax it, time it parts. What's this? Oh, you don't know how to go around?
That's what the Coast Guard new ones are. They got 3 of those there.
Now, what is this kind of?
That's the Coast Guard station. Yeah, they just got three of those brand new ones in. Should be, let's push out, should fly them.
The Cobra should be getting ready to go too. Coast Guard 6593, you can contact ground and be 11824.
Yeah, this is local Charlie. This is
Pipeline still is out on arrival.
Southwest. Local does all the coordinating and sequencing for our flights and all the people that are coming in and taking off. Coordinates with the repair for our releases. Anybody that flies through our area, he has to talk to. He's got a counter over here, keep track of what we've got going on. We've got a radar site over here. You guys been down a radar yet? We saw the camera set up now. I'd say it's not looking good right now. Right.
It is monitored.
What about the TV?
Like for me,
Well, unless they put in for sale for later, they can't
Muskegon.
US Navy on
11 to do. Like, we may have jets coming in. The only thing that's
So he's got a coordinate with Milwaukee, for anything that comes over from that area. Okay, we clear them. Maybe some of the possibility is clear to us. C-12 operations. Our ops officers. Yeah, I passed the word to him.
See, we got Chicago right down there.
Brock still needs a ride.
It's, we got a pretty good view up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the city.
Jeez.
I'm just going to have him move it up maybe 4 or 5 feet, and that's it. That's
Okay.
it right there. I've got 2 ambassadors with me. See to it that the group.
Oh yeah, we got to get that right like that.
Right away.
Is this?
Yep, got it. Make sure we got the wide angle here.
What concourse is this? Concourse.
Yeah. How you doing, sir? Mr. Lavelle, how you doing, sir? I too was a fighter pilot. I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force for 30 years. F-15 was the most recent, yeah. I just got out of the Air Force 5 years ago. And I also have spent some time with the Navy as well. It's been a short tour of the Shangri-La. Oh, okay.
Tell him how bad it
Is that right? In 1957, with the Navy on the Shangri-La. I was stationed at George Air Force Base in California, my Air Force Citizen. And I wanted to see what the Navy was doing. And over the Secretary of the Navy, one of the old crews was selected to go on the Shangri-La for 2 weeks. And they went out
It's the only problem with a camera like this, it's as high as everybody else's head.
I got surprised at the AC. Yes, sir. Not myself. I was dual. That's the one they
Oops.
Okay, everybody look right here now. Hey, Hersch. Hersch can't see you. Okay, let's try her again here. Everybody look right here. That's good. Hold on just a second here.
Yeah, I think I'm...
Okay, Hersch, move that way just about.
Where's Dad going?
Like that, great.
Wait, where's Dad hiding off here?
Come on, what the heck, you get back there. We'll get a picture.
We'll take your picture.
Yeah, you get back in there.
Mr. Rich Colley, Mr. Rich Colley, taking Julian Isaac.
Ah, we lost him.
Yeah, I'm losing.
Here, we'll use yours.
Oh, certainly, go ahead. No,
All right, I'm losing. I always seem to lose one. Oh, there we go.
Are you getting them all so you keep...
Put
the striker on it.
That's better. That's better. Okay.
Line up like that.
Nope. Don't want to bunch up. Don't want to bunch up. One hand grenade gets them all.
Yeah. Go from here to Terminal 2, and I really feel thrilled. I never had an inkling that I'd get a chance to meet and share some of the thoughts of some of the people that were associated with Butch O'Hare. And I too, as a fighter pilot, I've been a fighter pilot in the Air Force for 30 years. I just got out of the Air Force 5 years ago. Came here to O'Hare.
Attention, please. This will be a final boarding call for United Airlines Flight 308, nonstop service to New York. Boarding on the beach concourse. B716. All signals confirmed customer should not be on board the door number B16.
To me, it's, you don't know how I feel. I really feel honored just to share some of the thoughts with you. And again, welcome to O'Hare Airport in Chicago, Illinois. And thank you for the opportunity to rub elbows with a group of fighter pilots. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I was telling you,
Oh, is that my hat again?
I wrote the secretary of the I was a young fighter pilot stationed at George Air Force Base, California. And during that time, I did get permission, along with one other of my friends, and we spent 2 weeks on the Shangri-La off the coast of Coronado. And as far as I'm concerned, after I saw those carrier qualifications day and night, I was real thankful to go back to the Air Force. It was very impressive. Also, I was so impressed with the Navy operation, I applied for exchange duty in 1964. As it turned out, there were 2 of us in the finals, and the other guy beat me out, so I never got a chance to go back. But I was really looking forward to it with the Navy. It never happened, but there again, I really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you.
You're still looking for recruits.
I started out in the F-84, F-86, and I spent some time in the F-100, about 12 years. Had 300 combat missions in Vietnam. That's 3 tours. I did fly the F-15, the F-4. I did not fly the F-16 or the F-105. Basically, those are the only 2 up-to-date fighters that I didn't get a chance to fly. But I started out in the T-33, which is a 2-seat jet trainer. And my last flight in the Air Force was a T-33 5.5 years ago.
Round, full circle.
That's beautiful.
Butch O'Hare. Respected very much, very high. Butch O'Hare, media, as you see in the media, I've never known that man, I've never seen that man. I know another Butch O'Hare. Rather modest man, kind of shy. The excesses of adulation and embarrassment. He was kindly, concerned for his men, the pilots, the crew, everyone. Thoughtful, concerned about their welfare at all times. So he was a wonderful man and a wonderful leader, and we are just honored to be here and pay our respects to him. Bow our heads for a moment. Heavenly Father, we thank you very much for the importance that you are in our life. We thank you for the opportunity to come here to this very important place to pay our respects to a beloved comrade,
Carrie Gasolana, please meet your party and baggage claim number 1,
our shipmate,
Lower United Airlines. Mr. Reddit, Mr. Allen Reddit, please pick up the nearest United Airlines white courtesy phone for a message.
We're ever mindful of a great wisdom and love, and we thank you for, we're eternally grateful for an opportunity to be at Butch O'Hare Squadron, for his guidance as a teacher, companion, and friend. We'll always know that through him, you are able to guide us, protect us, and show us the way. We ask for a blessing on this group, and we pray you'll continue to guide us and show us the way. Amen.
Mr. Reddish, Mr. Alan Reddish, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Ray Campbell, please pick up the stairs. Do not airlines like courtesy phones for a message.
Joe, can I get in here so I can get a good tight shot of this? Sorry. We'll have it on tape for you, I swear.
Judge Gordon Brett would do the office.
It's been over 40 years now since the officers and men of Fighting Squadron 6 have been assembled in reunion to honor not only the members of the squadron, to reacquaint ourselves with each other, but also to honor those who have died. The main thrust of our get-together, of course, is to honor Butch O'Hare, Lieutenant Commander, who we joined as young junior officer and taught us. A fine man, he exemplified the credo of the officers, duty, honor, country, and he died in the service of his country. One of our members, who has also been deceased,
United States Shift Instructor to ticketing position 49, Shift Instructor ticketing position 49.
Memoriam, and the poem reads as follows: yours in peace for an endless time. Yours is the birth that we saw. These hearts of ours are pained, yet proud in the glory of how you fought. No more will the gay colored flags at mass call you and your men to land. For the cast you answered in silence at night was sent by a mightier hand. Perhaps where you went the sea breeze blew with a fullness in its blast, you approached the deck of the heavenly ship with a project to the last. And he on his bridge returned your salute, the report of your battle won, that echoed the hearts of all of us with a very well done, son. Commissioner, we now stop and to you this poem to enhance the memorial.
United Station, Mr. Jaworski, Ms. Pat Jaworski, please come to ticketing position 49. Pat Jaworski, ticketing position 49.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the aviation community, I accept this flag. And you can rest assured that it would be displayed appropriately. I'm not sure where yet, but it'll be where everybody that passes through this airport will get a chance to see it. And I, again, on behalf of the mayor and the city of Chicago, I accept this flag. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Looks like one of those old-time pilots, doesn't he? I forgot.
I had to laugh.
I thought I was the only old one.
Yeah, that wasn't what I wanted.
it was a must to go to church. I wouldn't get me to church. I left. Another country. Looking better?
I don't know, but I think I'm going to be, my battery pack is flashing.
It's a shame the other one would. Right. Mark, leave everything go, and I'll put things away.
All right.
I need to say.
Can we be careful with the cord, lamp cord, please?
I hope we're going to be back soon. Stay.
is the end. This is just a picture of Butch and the plaque there.
I think that's better than the one that you had in the magazine, so. Because I've seen the plaque and the stuff, so that would be kind of something. Got it? Okay. Phew, that light is right when you sit it in your eyes.
Now let's hope that this thing worked right.
Oh, God.